Who do you trust right now? That's the question that everybody should be asking themselves in 2024. I personally, my entire life, have always had a very short list of people I can really truly trust in my life. And I don't think that's ever going to change because most people have proven themselves to be untrustworthy. Do you trust your priest, your pastor at church? Do you trust your boss? Do you trust our government? Do you trust your doctor? Who do you trust, guys? Well, apparently more and more Americans are feeling just like me, because today I saw a Gallup poll for the 2023 Honesty and Ethics poll, and this poll has been done ever since 1976, guys. So it's gone back in time quite a bit in order to test people out and see what they think about different professions and who they can really trust and who they deem to be trustworthy, okay? And 12 out of the 13 jobs that are typically on here have declined in ethical ratings in just 1 year. More and more people are saying, I can't trust you. And trust has just been slowly dwindling away as they keep taking this poll year after year. In fact, since 2019, 5 years ago, guys, it has declined 6 points. The worst ones right now, the worst offenders on this list are the media. Oh, we talk about them all the time here on the channel. And pharmacists, okay? I don't know why they're not very trustworthy because all they do is give you your pills. But anyways, so you got senators, clergy, and Congress people, as well as journalists. And some of the other least trusted professions are people that hold any sort of government job or people that are in sales or advertising. And then the other side of the spectrum, here's the type of professions that people say they can trust right now. People say they can trust their dentists, they trust engineers, they trust veterinarians, they trust nurses. But it's getting tougher and tougher to know who to trust out there, guys. I hope most of you who watch my channel trust me. I would think that's why you stick around. And by the way, my reputation is very important to me on this channel. And if I ever report anything that's not true, it's never on purpose. It's because people make mistakes and sometimes you hear something that isn't true. However, I do my best to bring the most accurate and up-to-date information here that is factual. So hopefully most of you at least can trust me. I know that was one of the things that most of my clients used to say about me in real estate as well, is that, you know, they could rely on me. I was trustworthy. That was one of my best attributes as a salesperson, which is kind of why I fell out of it, because in order to kind of keep doing this long term, you have to get slimier and slimier to make more deals, and it doesn't feel good. So, you know, I knew my calling was somewhere else, and I'm glad I found it here on YouTube. But reality, guys, I feel like it's getting harder and harder to trust almost any profession anymore, because a lot of people don't seem to want to do the job that they're supposed to do. You know, like even when you go to the doctor now, like I don't trust any of these doctors anymore. Most of them, all they want to do, they want to just write you a prescription and get you out the door and see as many patients as possible to keep that insurance dough rolling in. You know, you're just basically running a little factory there of how many patients can we squeeze in throughout the day. They don't respect your time either. They want you to be there 15 minutes early to fill out all the paperwork, and they make you wait an hour and a half to see the doctor, which is complete BS, you know, it's getting old. That's the first one that comes to mind. The one I was surprised not to see on this list of people is like construction crews, guys. Like you see all these problems that are happening with construction all the time, that people have to sue, they have to get into huge fights with the builders in order to get things corrected and all of this. Like I saw a story the other day on the news about this couple that bought a brand new house in Atlanta, and their car doesn't fit in the garage. And they have a tiny car too, like a small one, and it still doesn't fit because the builders put the water heaters right behind where the car is supposed to go, and you can't even fit the car in the garage. So whenever they tried to ask them to move it and make a homeowner's warranty claim, they said, no, we're not going to do anything about it. You're going to have to move it at your expense. But of course, once they got the local news involved, they decided to change their tune on that. Real estate agents, obviously they are salespeople. Most of them you probably can't trust, unfortunately. Anybody really trying to sell you something, it's hard to trust what their true intentions are. But I definitely don't trust our government and the numbers that we've been getting for all the unemployment figures, for the new jobs numbers that keep coming out, all the inflation data as well. here's the latest proof of why I don't trust these numbers, guys, because take a look at this. Wage growth has been outpacing inflation since May. Take a look at this chart. The wage growth is the blue line and the CPI is the yellow line, as if that's the only thing that actually matters. So they're saying that wages now are up 4.5% and are officially outpacing inflation. And here's why this is a lie, guys, because even though the hourly wages are up, one of the reasons that it's up is because people's hours are getting cut. So instead of you working 40 hours a week, you're working 30 hours a week and you get a small raise. But in the end, people are still making less money. So it's another one of these finaglings of the system in order to create this perception that the economy's doing well when in fact it isn't. And the other thing is, all these great jobs numbers that keeps coming out, yeah, well, the pay that's being offered for all these supposed new jobs has been coming down over the past year. So that's another warning sign that things are not going as well as we're being told right now. But, you know, when these jobs numbers came out, everybody was jumping for joy, and now you're supposed to believe that the wages are outpacing inflation. Like, for who, guys? For the top 10% of earners out there? Yeah, it is. You're still doing pretty good. For the bottom 90%, not so good. And this is why I don't trust anything that we hear anymore, because everything is now manipulated in some way to make it look like it's doing better than it really is. And the crazy thing is, like, this wasn't really always the case. This is kind of like a new phenomenon, I feel like, that really started happening after we had the GFC in 2008. Because ever since then, the government had to come in and make a huge rescue to the economy, okay? And it seems like ever since we had that rescue, they are committed to making sure that nothing like that ever happens again at whatever cost, no matter how much money we have to print, no matter how much we have to lie about the numbers and finagle the data, no matter what we have to do to manipulate the public into thinking that things are good right now. That's what needs to be done. And that's why I don't trust these people. And you know who else I don't trust right now? Insurance companies. Insurance companies, guys, are some of the biggest crooks out there, I believe. And we have all sorts of new information to back that up, okay? Because you have all these insurance companies that are leaving the most risky areas, right? So people who need insurance the most are being dropped with and having no coverage. It's not just in California and Florida, guys. This is happening to a lot of people all over the country, like I've mentioned in several videos in the past. But California and Florida get all the attention because we have the most natural disasters, we have very high populations, and our property values are high, and that's where the insurance companies are taking the biggest losses. So that's what's getting the most attention with this. Here's what insurance companies are saying. They're saying losses are increasingly related to climate risk. As the risk increases, so does the cost of insuring those assets. Well, okay, yeah, it's reasonable to say that the more disasters you have in an area, the more they're going to have to charge for insurance to stay in business, right? Except one thing they don't mention here is that instead of just raising people's premiums, a lot of times people are getting flat out dropped where they will not cover you at all for any cost. And they also don't mention about how all these CEOs and bigwigs at these insurance companies get these massive bonuses year after year. Meanwhile, people are getting dropped and have their premiums that are tripling. Explain that. You never hear that in the news. I wonder why. And now insurance companies are saying that even though there was no major disasters in 2023, they're still expecting to see $50 billion in losses because of the more everyday things like flash flooding and heavy thunderstorms and things like that that are taking out different areas. Now, there's a couple in California that are retired. They basically bought their dream home 18 years ago. Okay, and they recently received a non-renewal notice from Allstate in November of 2023. So they had an offer from one company come in and say, yeah, we'll insure your house for $12,000 a year. They're paying $2,000 right now, guys. So yeah, we'll do it for 6 times more. And basically this couple can't afford this new policy, and now they're looking at potentially moving because they can't afford their new insurance premiums there. And this is going to have implications on property values, guys. Whether you want to think so or not, it's going to. Because apparently they're saying that as soon as a property gets a non-renewal notice, then you essentially lose 12% of the market value of that property now. So when something becomes a high insurance risk, that's a 12% chop right off the top of that property's value. Think about that. And that doesn't even mean uninsurable. It just means you got a non-renewal notice. You already lost 12%. Imagine how much property values are going to go down when they're literally uninsurable. And here's the other problem with insurance too, guys, is people don't look at this when they're buying a house. Insurance is an afterthought for everybody most of the time. The last thing people care about is who's my insurance company going to be once I buy this house, or how much is it going to cost. This is something that everybody needs to do when you're out there shopping for a house, guys. No matter where you live, this applies to you. So when you have your due diligence period of your contract, which is when you first sign your contract, you are officially under contract, and you have anywhere between 7 to 15 business days in most states to do your due diligence period, which you can do all sorts of investigations on the property, you do an inspection, whatever you want. And if things aren't to your liking, a lot of times you can pull out of the deal with no penalty to you. You don't have to worry about losing your deposit. Well, this is the time when you need to be shopping insurance on the house. Ideally, you can even do it before you make an offer if you want to, but make sure 100% it's part of your due diligence period, because all you need to do is give the address to your insurance broker and try to answer some questions about the property, and they can give you a reasonably accurate quote. And if you don't know how much you're going to be paying for insurance until after the fact, until you've already gone down the road of buying this house, and then you discover later on that it's completely unaffordable, it puts you in a position where you might lose your deposit. You just wasted more time and effort and money investigating the property than necessary, when you could have just moved on if you knew this stuff ahead of time. So back to this couple who got the non-renewal notice. They're desperately trying to find a new insurance policy because their current coverage expires on February 15th, so just days away from now. And the offers that they are getting are just not good, guys. Everybody wants triple, at least what they were paying before, with a $10,000 deductible on top of that. They want you to pay 3 times as much, and you have a $10,000 deductible, meaning that almost anything that happens to the house is still going to fall into your lap, because most repairs are not above $10,000. So really, once again, they're putting all the risk on you as the homeowner, but still collecting a premium. And of course, this couple's upset because, you know, they're with this company for 18 years. They never missed a payment. They always paid their bills. And now they're just getting a non-renewal notice. So 18 years later, thanks for the payments, guys. See you later. So their insurance agent talked to the news and said, yeah, pretty much no insurance companies anymore are writing policies in high fire prone areas. And so this is going to be a problem for everybody who lives in California, who lives in a potential fire hazard area. So don't you see why I don't entrust insurance companies? Because they don't want to write a policy in areas where people actually need coverage. Think about that. They'll write you a policy in an area where you're low risk, where it's very unlikely that you're going to file a claim. But for somebody who actually needs to have insurance, you're at a risk of losing your property. They don't want to write you a policy. How is that not a scam, guys? How does anybody trust insurance companies? So the insurance broker says, yeah, we're desperately trying to find other options, but there's just nothing out there. And it's like, that's the thing. There's not going to be alternatives in these places because companies don't want to take on the risk. They don't want to pay you. They just want to collect the premiums. And since that's not in the cards anymore, why are we going to continue writing policies here? And that's why, if you ask me, the price of a lot of these houses are going to have to go down, way down, guys, because in order for people to buy these houses, number one, they need to be able to get insurance most of the time if you're not buying with cash. And somebody else is going to have to come in there and take the risk that they might get a non-renewal notice next, or that their insurance might triple next after it already tripled once for you. So that's a big risk for the next buyer to take, and a lot of people are not going to be willing to take that risk unless they can get the property at a significant discount. Speaking of who you can trust, at least this is a nice clean-cut deal here. The house is $1.95 million. They haven't lowered the price or anything. This is not a flip. They bought this house back in 2002, so they've owned it for a very long time, but no crazy shenanigans with the rental prices and listing at crazy high prices and trying to flip it here and there. So that's good when you see this. You know, when you see a property like that, they've owned it for a long time, looks like they take good care of it. Property tax bill here is about $12,500 a year, and man, it's rare to find properties like this in Miami today that haven't been tossed around like a hot potato. And car insurance companies, they are just as guilty, guys. Right now, they are ripping people off like you wouldn't believe, okay? Just back in 2022, the yearly average insurance premium was $1,771. Fast forward to today in 2024, it's now $2,543 per year. And so in 2023, it was $2,014. That's like a 27% increase in 1 year. Of course, they too blame it on weather events. They blame it on the fact that there was more car crashes and fatalities in 2021. So they're now trying to recoup those losses. And still, the CEOs of these companies get massive bonuses, but never mind that. On top of that, which is something I didn't even know, but you guys should know this, is that your credit score can highly influence how much you pay for car insurance. I had no idea, guys. Thank God my credit is excellent and my premium still jumps 25%, okay? But they say if your credit score decreases, that it can increase your average annual insurance cost by up to $1,800 a year, guys. Imagine that. Your credit score goes down and they up your cost by $1,800 for the year. That is criminal. They say your credit score actually has a bigger effect than if you received a speeding ticket, which adds an extra $523 in average annual cost, or even if you have a lapse in coverage, which is an average of a $276 increase. You're telling me having bad credit is worse than speeding or not paying your insurance bill, guys? That is insane. I mean, this is so crazy, especially if you've been a safe driver, you're somebody with no accidents, you know, good driving history, and then they up your rate because your credit's not as good, because you're struggling financially right now. They say this: if you're in a situation where your credit score is low enough to adversely affect your car insurance, you likely have recent delinquencies or other issues with debts that haven't been resolved. They say to try to make progress towards improving your score and improving your overall financial well-being to help get things back on track. Okay, so you want to charge people an extra $1,800 a year who are already struggling financially. That's why their credit's bad and they can't pay their bills. So you want to charge them more and tell them, hey, if you want your bill to go down, then you need to get out of these debts and pay these off and do better financially. But we're going to charge you extra in the meantime. That is unbelievable. That's just like saying, here's the best way to get out of debt is by having more debt. Like, what are you talking about? Now, obviously, we all know that having a low credit score, you know, drastically changes how much you pay for a mortgage or an auto loan or a credit card loan, anything like that. But insurance, come on, guys. Especially since they'll sit there and reward things that have nothing to do with good driving, you know? So, for example, if you have a teenager in your house, that will increase your insurance premiums by a lot. But if they have a really good GPA in school, then that can lower the premium. Like, what? Just because the kid's a bookworm and they're smart and they're nerdy in school, they somehow deserve a lower premium? I mean, they could still be the worst driver. That could be the kid that puts the car through the garage, guys. You know what I'm saying? It has nothing to do with how smart you are if you're good at driving a car. So they're literally rewarding things that have nothing to do with being a good driver and punishing things that have nothing to do with whether or not you're a good driver. And this somehow calculates into your insurance rate. If that's not a scam, I don't know what is. Now, speaking of insurance, Southern California got rocked recently with this huge amount of flooding and mudslides they've had over there. And guess what? Most of that is going to be all uninsured losses because most people over there don't have flood coverage. In fact, in the LA County area of about 10 million people, only about 14,500 people have flood insurance policies, guys. So people over there are going to be taking massive losses from all the damage that was done over there recently, and there's nothing they can do about it. And you know, here's the worst part. I'll bet you the people who actually do have the coverage, the 14,500, the moment they go to make a claim and try to get what they're owed on the property to get damages done, number one, they're either going to drop those people or they're going to raise their rates sky high as a punishment for calling us and expecting us to pay you the insurance that you're owed. If you live in LA and you were affected by this flooding and you have flood insurance, guys, and you're covered by this, and you get dropped or you see an increase in your premium, make sure to send me an email and let me know, because I want to report on this later on down the road on the channel if possible, because that's what I think is going to happen. That's what's happening to everybody and anybody that makes any kind of claim right now. So once again, who can you trust? Definitely not your insurance company. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.